Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome back to the Best English Podcast channel. I'm Sophia, and it's truly a pleasure to have you joining me today. Have you ever felt that frustrating moment where you know the English words, but they just won't come out right? Or maybe you freeze up in conversations, wishing you could speak more freely and naturally. If so, you're in the perfect place. Today, we're diving deep into powerful yet simple strategies that will transform the way you communicate in English. Get ready to finally connect with confidence, because by the end of this episode, you'll have actionable steps to sound more fluent, more natural, and most importantly, more like you in English. Stick around to unlock the secret to truly boosting your communication skills. This podcast is a space for us to learn together, reflect on our progress, and grow your language abilities in a way that feels natural and empowering. We all know learning English can be a real challenge. It's not just about memorizing grammar rules or vocabulary lists. The real hurdle often comes with actually speaking, expressing yourself with confidence, clarity, and a smooth flow. And that's exactly what we're going to tackle in this episode. So, tell me, have you ever found yourself in this situation? You have a thought, a perfect sentence, crystal clear in your mind. But when you open your mouth to speak in English, it comes out jumbled, or you stumble, or the words simply disappear. Maybe you hesitate, searching desperately for that one perfect word, only to get completely stuck. Or you say something and you can see in the other person's eyes that they just don't quite understand you. That feeling can be incredibly frustrating, can't it? If any of that resonates with you, please know you are absolutely not alone. This is a common experience for so many English learners around the world. It's not your fault. It doesn't mean you're bad at English. It certainly doesn't mean you need to buy more grammar books. Most of the time, it simply means you haven't had enough practice with the right kind of speaking, the kind that feels natural, spontaneous, and part of your everyday life. That's precisely what we're going to work on together in this episode. Our core theme today is how to genuinely boost your English communication skills. This isn't just about sounding more fluent in a technical sense. It's about learning how to truly connect with people when you speak. It's about being clearly understood, confidently keeping a conversation flowing, and feeling relaxed and at ease, even if you make a small mistake here and there. Because the ultimate goal isn't perfection, it's effective communication. We're going to explore simple, actionable ways to speak with greater clarity. I'll share real-life stories from other learners who faced similar challenges and found powerful ways to overcome them. These aren't abstract concepts from textbooks. They are practical strategies you can implement starting today. You won't need to dedicate hours to extra study. Instead, it's about a subtle but powerful shift in your mindset and how you approach practice. Let me also remind you of something incredibly important. Your accent does not need to disappear. Your sentence structure doesn't have to be flawlessly perfect. You absolutely do not have to sound exactly like a native speaker. Your primary goal is simply to be understood. That's it. And the more you focus on achieving that clarity, the more confident and capable you will naturally feel. So, consider this episode your personal guide to moving powerfully in that direction. Before we dive into the inspiring stories and practical tips, I want you to take a moment for a quick personal reflection. Think back to the last time you felt a little unsure or hesitant while speaking English. What specific elements made that moment difficult for you? Was it the vocabulary, the speed of the conversation, or perhaps a sudden dip in your confidence? Take a second to recall that situation because as we move through this episode, I want you to keep it in your mind. Our aim is to equip you with practical tools that will help you feel much more prepared and empowered the next time a similar situation arises. English isn't just a language for passing tests or excelling in academic settings. It's a living, breathing tool for real life. It's for connecting with fascinating people, building new friendships, sharing your unique ideas, asking important questions, and collaboratively solving problems. It's a common observation. Many people diligently learn English for years, yet they still find themselves avoiding speaking opportunities. Why? Almost invariably, it's because they're deeply afraid of saying something wrong. They worry about being judged or sounding silly. But here's the liberating truth. Speaking is fundamentally a skill, and like any other skill in life, whether it's riding a bicycle or playing music, the only way to genuinely improve it is to actively use it. What you truly need is consistent practice, not an elusive state of perfection. So today, I invite you to listen with a different kind of focus. You're about to hear incredibly relatable stories, discover practical and actionable advice, and learn easy-to-implement strategies that will genuinely help you speak more clearly and with much greater confidence. You'll soon realize that you don't necessarily need to acquire more complex words. Often, you simply need to master the use of the right words you already know. You don't need to force yourself to speak faster. What truly matters is speaking smarter. And you certainly don't need to transform your voice to sound like someone else. The goal is to sound authentically you in English. As we progress through this episode, I'll also intersperse a few thought-provoking questions for you to consider. These aren't tests, so there's no pressure to get them right. They're merely small invitations for reflection, designed to help you connect what you're hearing directly to your own life and your own language journey. All right, are you ready to embark on this journey together? Let's take a deep, calming breath, in and out. Remember this, you are here, and you are actively doing something incredibly positive for yourself. Let's begin. Let's really dig into something profound today, something that has the potential to completely transform your perspective on speaking English, genuine communication. I'm talking about clear, honest, and truly effective communication. Because here's the fundamental truth. Speaking English well isn't about being absolutely perfect. It's not about painstakingly using every single fancy word you've ever learned. Nor is it about constructing incredibly long, intricate sentences. It's certainly not about trying to mimic someone else's accent or speaking style. At its heart, effective communication is about connection. That's the ultimate goal, being able to express an idea so clearly that another person understands it effortlessly, and in turn, being able to genuinely understand them, creating a real sense of being understood yourself. A common belief among many English learners is that they need to achieve a very high level of fluency before they can even contemplate having genuinely good conversations. This often leads to immense pressure to use overly complex grammar or to recall lengthy vocabulary lists on the spot. But here's the liberating reality. In most real-life conversations, complexity often becomes the source of confusion. Whether you're trying to convey a crucial point in a work meeting or just enjoying a casual chat with a friend, what consistently works best is clarity, not perfection. The individuals who truly excel at communicating in English are not always the ones with the largest vocabularies. They are almost always the ones who keep their message simple, direct, and deliver it with natural confidence. Think back to the last time you were listening to someone explain something in English. Which scenario made it easier for you to grasp their message? Was it when they used long, winding sentences filled with abstract terminology, or was it when they spoke at a comfortable pace, articulating clear, short, and distinct ideas? In an overwhelming majority of situations, simplicity triumphs. When people speak with a natural rhythm and choose phrases that are easy to understand, we connect with their message far more quickly and deeply. The core message lands with greater impact, and there's significantly less room for misinterpretation. That's why simple sentences aren't merely beginner English. They are, in fact, incredibly effective and powerful English. There's a significant distinction between simply knowing English and actually communicating in English. Knowing English might mean you have a solid grasp of vocabulary and grammar, but communicating means you possess the ability to take all that knowledge and fluidly, naturally apply it in real-life interactions. It means being able to articulate something clearly in the moment, even if you feel a little nervous. Communication is a dynamic skill, and just like any other skill in life, it profoundly improves with consistent, intentional practice and a clear purpose. Let me illustrate this with a quick example. Imagine someone attempts to say, "Due to a previous engagement, I'm regrettably unavailable at this particular moment in time." That certainly sounds formal, doesn't it? But now, imagine they simply say, "Sorry, I'm busy right now." The second version is undeniably simple, yet it's also exponentially clearer and far more natural in a real-life context. Many learners try to impress others by using very advanced words, but authentic communication isn't about impressing. It's always about establishing a genuine connection. If you use an overly complicated word and the other person fails to grasp its meaning, then the flow of communication breaks down entirely. If your primary goal is to be understood, then clarity will always, always be more valuable and impactful than complexity. Here's another profound insight. When you consciously make an effort to keep your message clear and simple, a wonderful thing happens. You simultaneously build a far stronger sense of confidence. You become noticeably less afraid of potentially making mistakes. You can gradually stop the exhausting habit of trying to meticulously translate every single sentence from your first language into English. Instead, you begin to truly think in English, rather than just merely speaking it. That is an incredibly powerful psychological shift. In fact, embracing clear, unhurried communication can even make you sound more fluent. This is because when you speak with clarity and maintain a calm, steady demeanor, people naturally listen more intently. They find it much easier to follow your thoughts. They feel a sense of comfort and ease with your speaking style, and the more comfortable your listener feels, the more confident and relaxed you will feel in return. It truly becomes a positive, reinforcing cycle. Another important benefit is that clarity creates more space for genuine connection. When your mental energy isn't consumed by showcasing a vast vocabulary, you are freed up to truly focus on the other person. You can listen more attentively, you can respond in a fluid, natural way that feels authentic. That, my friends, is the hallmark of true communication. Around the globe, millions of people speak English every single day. Regardless of how you've learned, what profoundly makes the difference is how you choose to use the language. And consistently using it with the unwavering goal of clarity, of being heard, being understood, and forging a genuine connection. That is the pathway to real, lasting progress. One of the most frequent refrains I hear from learners is this: I diligently study English every single day, but I still struggle to speak well. Almost always, the underlying reason isn't that they haven't studied enough. It's often because their efforts have been focused on the wrong aspects. So, today, I want to powerfully remind you that what truly matters most isn't the sheer number of words you know. It's how effectively and clearly you can deploy the words you already possess. If you can articulate what you mean using short, natural-sounding sentences, then congratulations. You are already a formidable communicator. You absolutely do not need to wait until your English feels perfect to begin speaking. You can start right now, precisely from where you are in your journey. Allow yourself to speak slowly, deliberately. Choose simple, accessible words. Don't be afraid to politely repeat yourself if you sense a lack of understanding. What truly matters is that the person you're interacting with genuinely understands the message you are striving to convey. So, the very next time you find yourself immersed in an English conversation, I want you to laser focus on one singular objective: clarity. Not unattainable perfection, not blistering speed, not an impressive display of advanced vocabulary, just clarity. Give yourself the gift of time. Take a moment. Say less if that helps you to be clearer. Consistently choose simple, direct phrases. And above all, seek genuine understanding, not flawless performance. Because when people understand you, you forge a connection. And when you connect, you truly succeed. Let me share a story with you today, a story that many of you might find incredibly relatable. It's about a listener of ours named Mark, who lives in a bustling city. Mark is a talented systems engineer, working within a demanding international tech company. He had dedicated years to English study, devoured countless articles, and watched complex tech conferences. He could write eloquently, and his vocabulary was strong. However, a persistent pattern emerged. Whenever it was time to speak with his colleagues, particularly during critical meetings or on international calls, something would inexplicably happen. He would freeze. His mind, usually sharp, would suddenly go blank. The very words he knew would simply vanish. He confided in me, "Sophia, I know these words. They're in my head. I just can't find them when I desperately need them." This intense frustration lingered with him for years, gnawing at his confidence. Mark was a meticulous individual who always strove for preparedness. He even memorized extensive lists of formal business phrases, hoping they would help him project a professional image. Yet, when spontaneous conversations unfolded, especially with native English speakers who spoke rapidly, he found himself utterly unable to keep up. This led him to avoid speaking. He would send lengthy emails instead of participating in quick calls. In meetings, he consciously kept his contributions minimal, always apprehensive of making a mistake. Mark wasn't inherently shy, but English made him feel profoundly unsure. Every time an opportunity to speak arose, self-doubt would flood his mind. Is this the right word? Will I sound strange? And while he was consumed by this internal overthinking, the moment to speak would inevitably pass him by. This escalating situation began to erode his confidence, not just in his English, but in his professional contributions. He started to feel marginalized, despite his valuable ideas simply not reaching his colleagues effectively. It was at this critical juncture that he recognized a fundamental change was imperative. It was during this search that Mark stumbled upon a simple yet powerful idea. True communication isn't about impressing others. It's about the fundamental act of being understood. That singular thought completely revolutionized his approach. He explained to me, "Sophia, I was constantly striving to sound fluent, but what I truly needed was to be clear. So, instead of burdening himself with memorizing more intricate phrases, he redirected his focus entirely toward expressing his ideas in the simplest, most direct way possible. He stopped trying to mentally construct perfectly translated sentences. Instead, he diligently practiced building short, unambiguous thoughts. If a particular word eluded him, he would substitute it with another, simpler word he did know. If he felt nervous, he would deliberately slow down. If he made a mistake, he would simply repeat the sentence with calm confidence. He also adopted a small but remarkably effective pre-meeting ritual. Before any important discussion, he would mentally prepare 2 or 3 key ideas he wished to share. But this time, he would frame them in his own words. Simple, unpretentious words. For instance, instead of saying, "I would like to raise a concern regarding the project timeline," he would simply articulate, "I think the schedule is a bit tight." He completely let go of the anxiety about sounding flawless and instead channeled all his energy into ensuring his core message was undeniably clear. That seemingly small shift had an enormous, tangible impact. Mark gradually began to observe a remarkable change. When he spoke clearly and calmly, people's responses were consistently better. They began to ask him more follow-up questions. They actively included him more in the dialogue. His confidence started to blossom, not because his vocabulary had suddenly swelled, but because his words were finally, effectively reaching people. The communication was no longer a performance. It was a genuine two-way exchange. A pivotal moment occurred during a critical client meeting. It was his turn to articulate a technical update. In the past, he would have nervously read verbatim from his notes, but this time he adopted a different approach. He began by stating, "We changed the way the system works. Now it's faster and easier to use. Let me show you." It was simple, direct, and delivered with a newfound sense of quiet confidence. And it worked. The client immediately grasped the concept. His manager complimented his clarity after the meeting. That was the moment he knew this new approach was truly yielding results. What Mark profoundly discovered, and what I want you to deeply internalize, is this: you absolutely do not have to speak at a rapid pace to be considered fluent. You don't need to construct elaborate, long sentences to be taken seriously. What you fundamentally need is clarity. You need to feel liberated to speak in a way that feels inherently natural and comfortable to you. Simple language possesses immense power. It creates generous space for genuine human connection, and that, ultimately, is the very essence of real communication. Over time, Mark's entire relationship with the English language transformed. He continues to expand his vocabulary when specific needs arise. He still diligently reads and consumes content in English, but his overarching goal is no longer to sound advanced or impressive. His singular goal is to speak in a way that ensures people understand him the very first time. That clear objective brings him immense peace of mind. And most importantly, it fuels him with the courage to speak more frequently and confidently. The tangible results? He now confidently leads short presentations in English. He participates actively in international calls without any urge to withdraw. He has even begun mentoring new team members, sharing his valuable insights. He now tells me that when he speaks, he feels truly present, genuinely heard, and a fully participating member of the conversation. His inspiring story serves as a potent reminder that mastering spoken English isn't about demonstrating the extent of your knowledge. It's about authentically allowing people to know who you are. Mark didn't require more grammar. He fundamentally needed a profound shift in his mindset. And once he embraced that, everything began to change for the better. One of the most foundational and impactful habits you can cultivate to significantly improve your English communication is simply learning to use short, clear sentences. This might sound almost too basic, but believe me, this single concept can completely revolutionize how effectively people understand you and, crucially, how confident you feel every time you open your mouth to speak. So many learners believe that as they progress to more advanced levels, their sentences should instinctively become longer and more complex. But the undeniable truth is that clarity consistently outweighs complexity in its communicative power. When you consciously opt for concise, direct language, you dramatically reduce any potential for confusion and, conversely, amplify the chances for a genuine connection. You are giving your listener precisely what they need to effortlessly grasp your message. Let's break down exactly why this phenomenon occurs. When you attempt to speak in excessively long, convoluted sentences, especially in a second language, there's a significantly higher probability that you'll lose your way mid-thought. You might momentarily forget how the sentence began or which specific verb tense you were attempting to use. This often leads to hesitation, self-correction, or filling the conversational space with distracting ums and uhs. But when you consciously train yourself to articulate your thoughts in a shorter, more structured manner, you not only maintain the clarity of your message, but also experience a greater sense of mental organization and ease. I always emphasize this guiding principle. Short and clear often beats long and confusing. This isn't about reducing your word count merely to be brief. It's about making deliberate choices about the right words so that your listener doesn't have to expend extra mental energy trying to decipher your meaning. Let's examine a few practical examples together. Imagine you want to convey, in my opinion, the project could benefit from additional resources in order to improve efficiency and meet the upcoming deadline. While grammatically correct, it's quite heavy. A much shorter, yet infinitely clearer version might simply be, "We need more help to finish on time." Same core message, but exponentially easier to grasp. The first version sounds overly formal. The second version sounds authentic and real. Here's another common scenario. Instead of saying, "I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who contributed diligently to the successful completion of this arduous task," you can simply gracefully say, "Thanks to everyone who helped." It remains polite and professional, but it is unequivocally direct. Now, let's consider how this applies to casual daily conversations. Instead of saying, "I am not entirely sure whether or not the system update was completed successfully or if there were any residual issues that require further investigation," you can simply and effectively say, "I'm not sure if the update worked." This version is straightforward and clear. In situations where time is of the essence, employing short and clear sentences like these makes the entire exchange flow much more smoothly. Here's one final example. Instead of saying, "I'm reaching out to request additional information regarding the current status of our recent shipment and its estimated time of arrival," you can concisely ask, "Can you update me on the shipment?" When your paramount goal is truly effective communication, not merely a linguistic performance, then concise and simple phrasing becomes your absolute best ally. Sometimes, learners shy away from using short sentences because they worry it might make their English sound too basic. But that perception is simply not true. When delivered with clarity and confidence, short sentences can sound incredibly strong, intelligent, and self-assured. Just listen to how native speakers communicate in real life. You'll consistently notice that they frequently speak in short, impactful bursts of information. Let's do it tomorrow. I'll check and let you know. It keeps the conversation dynamic and flowing, making the interaction feel incredibly natural. The true litmus test of fluency is whether other people can understand your message effortlessly without having to strain or ask for clarification. So, how can you practically implement this? Here's a highly recommended technique. Actively practice rewriting your own sentences. Begin by articulating what you want to say in English, even if it feels overly long. Then, immediately ask yourself, how would I say this if I were talking to a close friend? Very often, the answer will be a remarkably shorter and more direct phrasing. Practice this approach with various real-life scenarios. Before an upcoming meeting or an important phone call, mentally prepare a few key ideas you want to convey. Then, consciously write them down in short, concise sentences. This deliberate preparation will significantly help you maintain your confidence when the moment arrives to speak. Another incredibly helpful strategy is to actively listen and then consciously copy. Choose an English speaker whose style you admire, perhaps from a favorite podcast or YouTube video. Pay close attention to how they speak. Notice the typical length of their sentences. You'll likely discover that the most effective communicators prioritize clarity and directness. Then, try repeating exactly what they say out loud, actively mimicking their intonation and rhythm. Get comfortable using those shorter, more natural forms. If you're someone who tends to overthink your English before speaking, this method will be incredibly liberating. When you release the pressure of trying to sound impressive and instead shift your focus squarely onto simply being understood, you will begin to speak with much greater authenticity. You'll stop pausing awkwardly or frantically searching for perfect grammar rules. This approach is also fantastic for significantly reducing the fear of making mistakes. When your sentences are shorter, there's less space for your thoughts to get tangled. You articulate your thought, you finish it, and you move on. Let me introduce you to someone whose journey might strongly remind you of your own. Her name is Lisa, and she hails from a vibrant city in the Midwest. When I first spoke with her, she articulated a common frustration. "Sophia, I understand English pretty well. I even comfortably watch movies without subtitles. But the moment it's time for me to speak, I just freeze." Lisa possessed a quiet demeanor and an incredible drive, but her biggest obstacle wasn't a deficit in grammar. It was an overwhelming sense of fear. She was deeply afraid of making mistakes, terrified of appearing silly, and constantly worried about finding the exact right words under pressure. Lisa had recently moved to a major city to take on a role at a prominent design company. The primary working language was English, and while her team was welcoming, she increasingly found herself avoiding casual conversations. She would strategically time her trips to the office kitchen, hoping no one else would be there. She frequently declined lunch invitations and only spoke when unavoidable. In team meetings, she remained quiet unless directly addressed. She confessed that her greatest fear wasn't merely speaking badly, it was the terrifying prospect of completely freezing in the middle of a sentence. This is a common experience. Many who learn English in formal settings focus intensely on rules, but the unpredictable nature of real conversations feels daunting. That unpredictability fuels anxiety, and anxiety, unfortunately, does not build fluency. Lisa knew she had to change. She just felt lost. Then, a seemingly small event occurred. Lisa shared an apartment with a roommate named Hannah from another state. One quiet morning, as they made coffee, Hannah casually asked, "Hey, what's your plan for today?" Lisa hesitated. Her initial instinct was to provide a short answer, but something prompted her to try more. So she took a breath and responded, "I have 2 meetings, one in the morning and one after lunch. I also need to finish a presentation." Hannah smiled warmly and replied, "Sounds busy. Is the presentation for your manager?" And just like that, a natural, flowing 2-minute conversation unfolded. It wasn't perfect, but it was a genuine, successful start. From that pivotal day forward, Lisa made a remarkably simple, yet consistently powerful decision. Every single morning, during their shared breakfast routine, she would consciously make an effort to initiate one small conversation in English with Hannah. It didn't need to be profound or lengthy. Sometimes it was merely about the weather or dinner plans or weekend plans. These tiny, low-stakes conversations became her personal safe space. There was no pressure to perform, no fear of judgment, just the invaluable gift of consistent, unpressured practice. And gradually, something truly remarkable began to unfold. Lisa found herself becoming much more comfortable with making minor mistakes. She stopped mentally correcting herself. She began to observe how Hannah spoke, how she used short, direct sentences, how she naturally incorporated common filler words, and how she intuitively inserted natural pauses. Lisa consciously began to mimic these patterns. She started to feel less like she was performing a language exercise and more like she was simply engaging in genuine conversation. After just a few weeks of this consistent practice, she began to notice a tangible shift in her interactions at work. In team meetings, she found herself speaking up more frequently. During lunch breaks, she actively joined group conversations instead of retreating. Then, one memorable day, during a critical client presentation, she delivered a concise summary of her team's progress, speaking entirely in English and, crucially, without freezing or faltering. She confided that her voice was trembling slightly, but no one else seemed to notice. Her manager specifically complimented her on her clarity. The true turning point arrived a few months later when Lisa applied for a significant new job. The entire interview process was conducted in English. Before the call, she diligently practiced her answers out loud, just as she had practiced her morning conversations. She kept her responses short, clear, and honest. Her primary focus remained on forging a genuine connection, not on achieving perfection. And she got the job. What truly made the difference for Lisa wasn't new, complex vocabulary, nor endless hours drilling grammar rules. Instead, it was the consistent, deliberate act of building a powerful habit, the habit of speaking a little bit every single day within a safe, low-pressure environment. It was the conscious choice to prioritize genuine connection over debilitating fear. And once that habit took root, her confidence began to blossom naturally. There's something profoundly powerful about starting small. Many people mistakenly believe they need to wait until they feel confident before they can even begin to speak. But often, the process works in the opposite way. You intentionally speak even when you don't feel entirely confident. And over time, through that consistent action, the confidence inevitably follows. Lisa's story is irrefutable proof of this principle. She began with just a handful of simple sentences. Today, she confidently leads client calls and feels fully prepared to embrace new professional challenges. Lisa didn't fundamentally change who she was. She remains soft-spoken and thoughtful. But now she refuses to allow fear to dictate her decisions. she discovered a sustainable way to practice consistently, free from intense pressure, and by committing to that, she granted herself permission to gradually improve. If you're listening and think, "That sounds exactly like me," then remember Lisa's story. If you've been holding yourself back from speaking, ask yourself, what's one small, low-stakes conversation you can initiate today? It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real and authentic. And when you commit to doing that again tomorrow, something profound will begin to shift. You don't need to postpone speaking until you magically feel fluent. You become fluent precisely by speaking. One of the most valuable, yet surprisingly underrated tools for achieving significantly better communication in English is the art of asking simple, clear questions. Very often, when individuals focus intently on improving their speaking proficiency, their entire mental energy is channeled into formulating better, longer, or more impressive answers. However, many overlook that sometimes the most effective pathway to a more engaging conversation lies not in what you say, but in what you ask. Simple questions possess immense power. They serve as vital catalysts, keeping the conversational dynamic alive. They unequivocally demonstrate genuine interest in the other person, making them feel valued. And, perhaps most importantly, they ingeniously relieve the immense pressure on you to unilaterally carry the entire dialogue. Think about this scenario. When you're deeply immersed in a conversation and you feel that familiar internal struggle of being unsure what to say next, it can trigger stress. You might feel an intense obligation to produce a perfectly articulate response, or your mind might become consumed with anxieties about choosing the correct vocabulary. But if you consciously redirect your focus from performing to genuinely being curious, seeking to understand, the entire conversational experience suddenly becomes exponentially easier and more enjoyable. Instead of feeling as though you're constantly being tested, you are simply exhibiting genuine interest in the other person and their perspective. That shift is infinitely more natural, and it is precisely where the strategic use of simple questions truly shines. Let's explore a few practical examples. Imagine you're at work and a colleague mentions a new project. You don't need to prepare a lengthy opinion. You can simply ask, "What's your role in the project?" Or, "Is the deadline coming up soon?" These questions are concise, clear, and remarkably easy to articulate. Yet they serve as powerful open invitations, unlocking the door for further conversation. They generously provide the other person with an opportunity to share more, and they skillfully help you remain actively engaged without feeling overwhelmed. Now, consider a different context. You're traveling, perhaps enjoying coffee at a charming cafe. You do not need perfect English to forge a simple connection. Questions such as, "Is this your favorite place around here?" or "What do you recommend from the menu?" can effortlessly initiate a friendly exchange. Even if the person responds with a longer answer, your only subsequent task is to simply listen attentively and then ask a straightforward follow-up question, like, "Why do you like it so much?" Do you observe how this dynamic works? The pressure gracefully shifts away from your need to perform elaborate speaking, and instead, you subtly assume the role of leading the conversation simply by embodying curiosity. And what about building friendships? You could effortlessly begin with something like, "How did you start learning English?" Or, "What do you enjoy doing when you're not working?" These are inherently simple, yet personal questions that gently invite people to comfortably open up. Furthermore, consistently asking questions powerfully demonstrates that you genuinely care and are actively engaged. When individuals feel authentically listened to, they naturally feel far more comfortable in your presence. Let me share a real example. A diligent learner I worked with confided that when she began speaking English in her professional role, she would consistently freeze during team meetings. Then, one day, instead of attempting to formulate a comprehensive comment, she simply asked, "Can you repeat that part about the deadline?" It was a small question, yet her colleague not only promptly provided clarification, but then, crucially, turned to her and inquired about her thoughts. That moment instilled in her a powerful sense of confidence. From that day forward, she consciously cultivated a new habit. She committed to asking one question in English during every single meeting. Over time, those consistent questions organically blossomed into more extensive dialogues, and eventually, she began to confidently share her ideas. But it all, crucially, began with that single, unassuming question. The immense advantage of questions is that you can thoughtfully prepare them in advance. Take a moment to consider the various situations where you regularly use English: work, academic settings, travel, online interactions. Jot down 3 or 4 questions that feel natural for you to ask. They don't need to be clever, they just need to be authentic. For example, in a work context, what are the next steps for this task? Or, when do you need this by? When socializing, what did you do over the weekend? Or, do you enjoy living in this city? These questions are concise and sufficient. There's also a significant psychological shift that occurs when you consistently ask questions instead of always explaining. You cease to feel like you're perpetually on stage, needing to perform, and instead, you naturally transition into genuinely participating. People rarely remember your grammar mistakes. What they powerfully remember is how you made them feel. When you take the time to genuinely ask them about their story, you empower them. You make them feel valued and heard. That's a feeling they won't soon forget. So I truly encourage you to try this in your very next English conversation. Instead of meticulously preparing a lengthy answer, prepare a small, thoughtful question. Ask something simple, then commit to truly listening to their response. And if you're momentarily unsure what to say next, simply ask another relevant question. It's akin to building a bridge, one step at a time. Many learners confess they feel stuck because they believe they run out of words. But often, what they genuinely need isn't more vocabulary. They need more effective habits. Asking strategic questions is one of those incredibly valuable habits. It provides you with a clear structure, it instills genuine confidence, and it effortlessly helps the conversation flow naturally. So, the very next time you find yourself in an English conversation, consciously choose to ask instead of always explaining. You will be astonished at how much easier the interaction feels. Let me tell you an illuminating story that I believe many of you will find deeply relatable. It's about David, a dedicated software engineer who lives in a bustling tech hub. David harbored a profound passion for learning English. He had poured years of effort into it, diligently reading English books, immersing himself in English movies, and using language apps daily. His knowledge of words was extensive. He even avidly followed complex grammar explanations online. Yet, despite all this study, David encountered a significant problem. He very rarely spoke English, and when he did, he felt overwhelmingly awkward and slow. He worked for a large multinational corporation, and his team was comprised of individuals from diverse countries. They all communicated seamlessly in English, yet David almost invariably remained silent during meetings. He would only speak when absolutely unavoidable, and each time nervousness would wash over him. He wasn't that he lacked ideas. It was simply that he profoundly lacked the confidence to articulate it aloud. The paralyzing fear of making mistakes kept him silently in the background. David had convinced himself that he needed even more intense study. He would tell himself, "If I just finish this next online course, then I'll finally be ready." But no amount of solitary study was adequately preparing him for the dynamic challenge of speaking with real people. He could compose impeccably written emails and understand everything others communicated, but the moment it was his turn to speak, he would freeze. Something vital was missing. One day, during a company team-building event, a subtle but significant shift occurred. He found himself standing next to Sophia, a colleague from the West Coast. They had never truly conversed. Under normal circumstances, he would have simply offered a polite smile. But on this day, he decided to challenge his habit. He recalled advice he had read: asking simple, open-ended questions is effective. So, taking a deep breath, he tentatively asked her, "Do you like working on the new project?" It was concise and basic, but it swung open the door for genuine interaction. Sophia immediately smiled, sharing what she liked and found challenging, and then, crucially, she turned the question back to David, asking for his thoughts. He responded slowly, deliberately, but something felt different. The self-imposed pressure had lessened. He wasn't attempting a flawless speech. He was simply engaging in authentic conversation. It didn't feel like a test. It felt like a genuine human connection. That transformative experience stayed with him. David finally grasped that he didn't need to wait until he miraculously felt fluent to speak. What he truly needed was to systematically build a series of small, manageable speaking habits. So, he established a simple rule. Every single day at work, he would consciously ask one question in English to a colleague. It could be about anything: work, weekend plans, hobbies. He meticulously kept his questions simple and direct. Did you enjoy your weekend? What's your favorite part of this city? Each question served as a stepping stone, leading to a brief but meaningful conversation, and with each successful exchange, he felt a tangible surge of confidence. Initially, he still made mistakes. He would sometimes forget a word, but his colleagues, understanding and supportive, didn't mind. They appreciated his effort, and the more he spoke, the more effortlessly natural the process became. Within a few months, David was not only engaging in longer conversations, but also confidently speaking up during team meetings. He began sharing his innovative ideas more openly, and his colleagues started to recognize him not just as an excellent engineer, but as an effective communicator. But the most significant change wasn't about an increase in vocabulary. It was a fundamental shift in how he perceived himself. David stopped labeling himself as someone bad at speaking English. Instead, he began to truly see himself as a capable individual who could genuinely connect with others through English. He shared a realization. The true turning point wasn't when I learned some new, sophisticated phrase. It was when I asked a simple question and saw a genuine, positive response from someone. That moment made me truly feel like I could be a meaningful part of the conversation. David continues his diligent study. He still immerses himself in English, but now he also consciously integrates speaking practice into small, real moments throughout his daily routine. And it is precisely within these consistent, authentic moments that his true progress is unfurling. His story serves as a poignant reminder that it's tempting to hide behind endless study. It feels safe. But genuine growth never happens within comfort. Growth truly flourishes through courageous action. And sometimes the smallest action, like asking a clear question, can catalyze the most profound change in your language journey. If David's story resonates with you, remember his pathway. He didn't passively wait until he felt ready. Instead, he proactively forged a small, clear plan and meticulously followed through. One question a day, that was the modest catalyst that fundamentally altered how he confidently used English in his real life. If your aspiration is to genuinely improve your spoken English, there's a crucial insight I wholeheartedly want you to grasp. The process doesn't have to be overly complicated, but it absolutely must be consistent. One of the most prevalent mistakes I observe among learners is their tendency to perpetually wait for the perfect moment to practice. They often believe they need an ideal language partner or a quiet space. But the fundamental truth is, if your aim is to significantly boost your communication skills, you must begin actively integrating English into your real life every single day. Now, I fully understand what might be going through your mind. But I simply don't have enough time. Or I might not even know what exactly to practice. And that's perfectly fine. I'm not advocating for arduous hours of intense study. What I am suggesting is a conscious effort to use the English you already know to articulate your world, describe your daily routine, and express your thoughts, even in the briefest moments. These small, consistent moments are incredibly powerful precisely because they are recurring. And when you commit to practicing something daily, it gradually becomes an inherent part of you. How to do it? Let's begin with one of the simplest yet remarkably effective habits: narrating your daily routine in English. This might sound straightforward, but it's an exceptional tool for organically building fluency. Consider your morning routine. What are the first things you do when you wake up? What do you typically have for breakfast? How do you get to work? All of these mundane activities can be effortlessly transformed into concise English sentences. For example, as you're enjoying your breakfast, you can casually say to yourself, "I'm having toast with butter and coffee." Or, "I made eggs today. I cooked them with fresh tomatoes." Speak these sentences out loud if your environment allows. If not, articulate them clearly within your mind. The core objective is to become comfortably accustomed to spontaneously constructing sentences about your own lived experiences. You can seamlessly apply this same technique while performing other routine activities, like walking to the bus stop. You might internally articulate, "The weather feels cold today," or "I notice a lot of traffic." These are just ordinary thoughts, but when you consciously translate them into English, they become invaluable, real-time practice opportunities. And here's the best part: you don't require anyone else to be present. You don't need a teacher. You are simply using English to describe your immediate world, moment by moment, making the language an active companion. Another incredibly accessible way to practice is by consistently listening to English podcasts. You are already doing that right now, which is fantastic. But here's a method to elevate that experience. After you finish listening to a segment or an entire episode, make a conscious effort to repeat something you heard. It could be a complete sentence or even just a useful phrase. When you consciously repeat authentic sentences, you are actively training both your brain and your mouth to collaborate effectively in English. And over time, this will make your own spoken English feel significantly more natural. You can also leverage the power of writing. Try your hand at crafting short, simple dialogues. Imagine a brief conversation between you and a friend. Keep it straightforward. "Hey, do you want to get coffee later?" And the reply, "Sure. What time?" This exercise helps you practice everyday expressions. You can even maintain a very short daily journal entry, just a few lines each night. For example, today I woke up at 7 a.m. I went to the gym. I worked from home. For dinner, I had pasta. These seemingly simple sentences are your foundational building blocks. Here's a fun and engaging activity. Choose any random object in your room, perhaps your phone, a book, or a coffee mug, and make an effort to describe it entirely in English. Let's say you choose your phone. You could articulate, "My phone is black. It's currently next to my laptop. I use it to check messages and listen to music." This is authentic, real-world English. You are actively connecting the language with your immediate environment, and that vital connection makes the learning stick much more effectively. One of my absolute favorite tips is to subtly narrate what you're currently doing, almost as if you're explaining it to an invisible person. For instance, "I'm opening the fridge. I'm looking for some fruit." "Oh, I found an apple." You are talking to yourself, but you are consciously doing it in English, and that is precisely what matters most. You are actively teaching your brain that English isn't just a subject, it is an active, living part of your everyday life. When you transform these small tasks into opportunities for consistent practice, you stop perceiving English as merely an academic subject. Instead, you start to view it as a practical tool. You gradually cease to feel like a perpetual student and begin to embody the identity of a confident communicator. This profound shift is precisely what builds genuine confidence and propels you toward true fluency. Let me share a quick, inspiring example. Emily, a dedicated listener, told me she started a simple daily ritual. She would describe her meals in English every single day. Initially, she began with just one sentence at breakfast. "I'm eating cereal." But gradually, she expanded on it. "I made coffee. I added sugar. It tastes good." After just 2 weeks of this consistent low-pressure practice, she observed something amazing. When she next spoke with her English tutor, she found that the words flowed much more easily. Why? Because she had been consistently practicing those very words and structures all week long, without any pressure, simply by integrating these small, powerful daily habits. So, what action can you take today, right now? Pick just one daily activity, eating a meal, going for a short walk, or even brushing your teeth, and begin describing it in English. 1 or 2 simple sentences are enough to start. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, consciously pause after a few minutes and make an effort to repeat something you heard aloud. If you enjoy writing, try jotting down a short dialogue or journal entry tonight. These seemingly small, consistent actions, when performed every single day, will profoundly change how you speak English. You might not perceive a dramatic difference in a single day, but I promise you, after 1 week, you will undeniably feel the positive shift. Let me share a story that will profoundly inspire you and underscore the power of consistent, low-pressure practice. It's about a dedicated listener of ours named Amy. She lives in a lively city in the South, and when she first embarked on her English learning journey, she felt utterly stuck. She had diligently studied grammar, memorized vocabulary, and watched English TV shows. Yet, when the moment arrived to actually speak, she would invariably freeze. The words she knew were there in her mind, but they simply refused to emerge smoothly. Every time she attempted to speak, she would hesitate, mentally translating each sentence, plagued by uncertainty. Amy worked at a local design studio. While most interactions were in her native language, some key clients were international. Speaking English fluently wasn't a strict job requirement, but she possessed an intense personal desire to master it. She harbored dreams of someday working abroad or traveling with greater confidence. However, the root of her problem wasn't a lack of knowledge. It was the unsettling sensation that speaking English felt profoundly unnatural. She confided that when she would finally open her mouth, her thoughts would inexplicably slow down, as if they had to traverse a long tunnel before miraculously transforming into audible words. One particularly long day, after an exhausting shift, Amy decided to clear her head with a walk in a nearby park, a cherished routine. As she walked, observing her surroundings, almost without conscious thought, she heard herself say aloud in English, "There are a lot of people here today." The spontaneous utterance genuinely surprised her. She had never before spoken English aloud while alone, but in that moment, it felt incredibly safe. There was no pressure, no judgment, just the comforting presence of nature and the sound of her own voice articulating English words. That night, the simplicity of that moment lingered. Perhaps, she mused, this could be her way of practicing. No audience, no critical eyes, no fear of judgment, just a consistent method to transform her internal thoughts into spoken words in real time. So, the very next day, she consciously tried it again. As she strolled through the park, she began to deliberately describe everything she observed. "I see a man walking his dog. The flowers are bright yellow. The air feels crisp today." These were simple sentences, but they were authentic, real-time observations. She spoke about what was directly in front of her, and slowly, something began to profoundly shift within her. At first, she only managed a few sentences. She would occasionally run out of things to say, but she persistently kept going. She transformed it into a consistent routine, dedicating 20 minutes each day to walking and deliberately speaking English aloud. She didn't require a formal partner or a textbook. All she needed was her phone, a familiar path, and the courage to use her voice. Sometimes she would playfully pretend she was conversing with a friend, narrating her day. Other times, she would imagine herself giving directions or explaining what she planned to cook for dinner. Over time, Amy began to notice a remarkable acceleration in her fluency, not just in her speaking speed, but in her cognitive processing. Words that once required significant effort now appeared much more swiftly. She found herself needing to pause and translate far less frequently. The connection between her thoughts and their English articulation became smoother. It wasn't about linguistic perfection. She still made small mistakes, but the overwhelming sensation was one of profound liberation, and that newfound freedom was everything to her. She also observed positive changes in her professional life. When she needed to compose emails, the words emerged with greater ease. When engaging in brief conversations with international clients, she no longer experienced the crippling panic. Then, one day, her manager approached her with an unexpected request to assist with a short video presentation for an important English-speaking partner. A year prior, Amy would have immediately declined. But this time, buoyed by her consistent practice, she confidently said yes. She wrote her segment, practiced it a few times, and recorded it with genuine self-assurance. It wasn't perfect, but it was unmistakably clear, and the client's positive response validated her progress. What made Amy's transformation so profoundly impactful was her deliberate choice to use real language in real time. She wasn't mechanically memorizing lines. She was actively thinking and speaking simultaneously, drawing upon the English that was already within her. And because she integrated this practice into an activity she genuinely enjoyed, her daily walks, she eagerly looked forward to it. It seamlessly became an enriching part of her lifestyle. She shared a profound insight with me. I stopped trying to sound smart. I just started trying to sound real. And that, my friends, is the unequivocal key. When you release the burden of trying to impress and instead channel your energy into simply expressing yourself authentically, everything shifts. You will naturally speak more, you will derive greater enjoyment from the process, and you will undoubtedly improve at an accelerated pace. Amy's method might seem deceptively simple, but its effectiveness is truly profound. Speaking aloud while walking helped her disrupt the ingrained habit of overthinking. It created a safe mental space for her to explore the language without the paralyzing grip of fear. And because she committed to it with remarkable consistency, her fluency began to blossom organically. This type of accessible practice is available to everyone. You don't need expensive tools. All that's required is a small allocation of time and the willingness to simply talk to yourself out loud in English. Describe what you observe. Verbally articulate what you are doing. Playfully imagine telling a friend about your day. The more you consistently engage in this, the more automatic the process will become. Amy's inspiring story stands as a powerful testament. True fluency doesn't originate exclusively within a formal classroom. It truly begins in small, unassuming moments, during walks, within your daily routines, and most powerfully, through the authentic sound of your own voice. Above all, it commences when you finally stop endlessly waiting for the right words to magically appear and instead boldly start using the words you already possess. Let me share something with you that might initially surprise you. True fluency in English isn't fundamentally about speaking with absolute perfection. It's not about meticulously applying the correct grammar rule in every single sentence, nor is it about striving to impress others with an elaborate array of complex words. In fact, the profound truth is that genuine fluency stems far more from consistent habit than from a vast academic knowledge of linguistic rules. What I mean by this is that the natural rhythm and flow of your speech hold significantly greater importance than whether you've achieved grammatical flawlessness in each individual sentence. Paradoxically, sometimes, it's not even about speaking quickly at all. It's about articulating your thoughts with unwavering clarity, and achieving that clarity often requires taking your time. I know many of you experience an internal pressure to speak English at a rapid pace, especially when you observe others conversing fluently. You might think, I need to speak faster. But please allow me to offer this liberating perspective. It is perfectly okay to deliberately slow down. In fact, more often than not, slowing down will prove to be profoundly beneficial. Let's delve into the concept of rhythm for a moment. When you are speaking, it's not merely the individual words that convey your message. It's profoundly about how you utter those words. Speaking too quickly, attempting to cram too many words into a single breath, will only make you more challenging to understand, even if your underlying grammar is technically perfect. What you genuinely need to discover is your natural, comfortable rhythm. Grant yourself the gift of time. Take a deliberate breath. Allow yourself a moment to genuinely think about what you intend to convey. Then, articulate your words slowly and thoughtfully, not to an unnaturally sluggish degree, but just slowly enough that you don't feel rushed. You will quickly discover that speaking with a calm, deliberate pace will make your English sound remarkably more natural. The true key to unlocking fluency is to speak with an inner confidence, and that authentic confidence blossoms directly from consistent practice. Fluency is a direct byproduct of speaking frequently, not necessarily of speaking flawlessly. You see, once you tap into a comfortable rhythm with English, the occasional grammatical imperfection in a single sentence becomes secondary. What holds far greater importance is your ability to clearly communicate your core ideas. The right word doesn't always have to be the grammatically perfect word. What matters is successfully conveying your message. Consider it from this perspective. When you engage in speaking, your objective isn't to achieve absolute perfection. Your paramount objective is to be understood. You need to employ language that is unequivocally clear and effortlessly easy for others to follow. And this certainly does not imply rushing frantically through your sentences, attempting to squeeze everything into one continuous breath. Instead, embrace the power of strategic pauses when you genuinely need them. Allow yourself a brief moment to gather your thoughts and then articulate your words slowly and deliberately. You will quickly discover that speaking with a calm, deliberate pace will make your English sound remarkably more natural. The true key to unlocking fluency is to speak with an inner confidence, and that authentic confidence blossoms directly from consistent practice. Fluency is a direct byproduct of speaking frequently, not necessarily of speaking flawlessly. This disciplined approach to rhythm doesn't just facilitate better understanding, it also remarkably reduces your own stress levels. Many individuals fail to realize this, but pauses are every bit as vital as the words themselves in effective communication. Deliberately pausing at the right moments empowers your listener to process your words effectively and affords them a brief window to reflect. It's not about relentlessly rushing. It's about diligently ensuring that your message is crystal clear. Think about how you instinctively converse in your native language. You naturally pause when a thought concludes or when you transition to a new idea. You afford your words ample space to breathe. That is precisely the deliberate practice you should cultivate in English. When you experience nervousness about speaking English, there's a strong tendency to accelerate your speech, isn't there? You might unconsciously begin talking faster because you're worried about making a mistake. But ironically, that instinctive reaction is counterproductive. It's actually making you sound more anxious and harder to understand. Instead, the very next time you find yourself speaking in English, consciously commit to this mantra: breathe, pause, think, then speak slowly and clearly. Here's a remarkably simple yet profoundly effective tip for you. If you notice yourself speaking too quickly, or if your words start to get tangled, try silently counting to 3 in your head before continuing. This brief, intentional pause provides you with a valuable moment to calmly gather your thoughts, and equally important, it allows the other person ample time to process what you've said and comfortably keep pace. You might also observe that when you consciously speak at a slower, more deliberate pace, your words seem to carry more weight. This grants you the precious time to carefully choose the most appropriate words, rather than frantically worrying about whether they are grammatically perfect. Remember this fundamental truth: perfection is not the ultimate objective. Effective communication is. Let's translate this into a practical scenario. Imagine you're at work and you need to explain a crucial project update to your manager. You might feel a surge of nervousness, and the temptation might be to speak rapidly. However, this hurried approach could lead to confusion. Instead, take a deep, calming breath. Then, articulate your thoughts slowly and clearly. Say something like, "The project is progressing well," We're currently on track. We just require a few more days for final testing. Notice how I'm deliberately incorporating pauses. I'm not rushing through the information. I am consciously giving you, the listener, a comfortable opportunity to absorb each component. This methodical approach doesn't just make you sound more confident, it fundamentally makes your message significantly more effective. And here's another vital insight. Sometimes, when individuals focus excessively on intricate grammar rules, they inadvertently lose sight of the core meaning they intend to convey. But in a real dynamic conversation, the absolute priority isn't about grammatically perfect utterances. It's overwhelmingly about achieving clear understanding. If you articulate, "I have gone to the store this morning," it is grammatically correct. However, the intended meaning is identical to simply stating, "I went to the store this morning." The second sentence is far more natural, common, and it doesn't necessitate you forcing an extra grammatical structure. Always remember, simple, clear sentences delivered with a natural, comfortable rhythm are almost invariably more effective. So, the very next time you engage in English practice, shift your focus to rhythm. Breathe deeply, grant yourself ample time, and consciously speak slowly. Resist the urge to rush. You will undoubtedly discover that when you provide your words with the space they need to resonate, they will begin to flow with remarkable ease, and you will find yourself articulating your thoughts with a powerful, authentic confidence. Try this out today. As you navigate your day, make a conscious effort to practice speaking slowly and with crystal clarity. There's no need for undue haste. Just take your time and observe how much more comfortable and in control it feels. And always, always remember, fluency isn't rigid adherence to rules. It's about discovering your own natural rhythm and maintaining unwavering consistency in your practice. Let me share with you the compelling story of Tyler, a listener who resides in a charming coastal town. Tyler had always possessed a passion for mastering English. He had immersed himself in study, expanded his vocabulary, and practiced grammar rules. However, there was one persistent habit that seemed to impede his progress. Tyler had developed an ingrained habit of speaking at an incredibly rapid pace. His overarching goal was to sound effortlessly fluent, to speak with the same blistering speed as native speakers. He genuinely believed that speaking quickly would make him sound more authentic. However, in the reality of everyday communication, this approach inadvertently created far more challenges. Tyler didn't immediately realize it, but his excessively rapid speech made it profoundly difficult for others to comprehend him. His sentences would often blur together, and he would sometimes inadvertently mix up words or omit crucial details. Instead of projecting effortless fluency, he frequently came across as unclear, even garbled. His friends and colleagues found themselves constantly asking him to repeat what he had just said. This left Tyler feeling deeply frustrated and self-conscious. The more he attempted to rush, the more errors he accumulated, and the less confident he felt. One pivotal afternoon, while candidly discussing his struggles with a perceptive colleague, Tyler experienced a profound realization. His colleague gently explained that true fluency is not about speaking at maximum speed. It is fundamentally about speaking in a manner that is consistently clear and easy for others to follow. Tyler then began introspection, reflecting on his communication style. He finally grasped that he wasn't allowing his listeners sufficient time to process his thoughts, and that his paramount objective should always be to ensure crystal clear clarity, not merely rapid-fire delivery. It was at that precise moment that Tyler consciously decided to fundamentally alter his approach to speaking English. He deliberately ceased his attempts to rush and instead committed to focusing on articulating his thoughts at a more comfortable, manageable pace. Instead of trying to deliver his entire message in one continuous breath, he consciously began to allow himself deliberate pauses between his thoughts. He wasn't striving for perfection. His sole intention was to be genuinely understood. Initially, this shift felt incredibly unnatural and awkward. But with consistent practice, he gradually began to feel much more at ease. The results were truly astounding. As Tyler consciously started speaking more slowly and with greater clarity, his communication proficiency skyrocketed. People began to understand him with remarkable ease, and they no longer needed him to repeatedly clarify. His confidence blossomed, not because he was speaking faster, but because he possessed the unshakable certainty that his message was being effectively understood. Tyler finally realized that by prioritizing clarity, he could achieve more effective communication. One of the most profound benefits that emerged from Tyler's decision to slow down was the invaluable gift of more time to think. When he had previously spoken too quickly, he frequently stumbled. But by regulating his pace, he discovered that his ideas flowed more smoothly. He gained ample time to organize his thoughts, and this newfound control imbued him with greater confidence. He no longer felt compelled to rush. He could comfortably take his time and still successfully convey his message. Tyler also understood that slowing down didn't imply speaking at a glacial pace. It was about discovering the optimal balance. In casual conversations, he maintained a normal speed. In formal situations, he ensured he spoke at a deliberately slower pace, articulating each word with clarity. This balance allowed him to be flexible while consistently maintaining effective communication. Another pivotal lesson Tyler internalized was that true fluency transcends mere speaking speed. It is fundamentally about how effectively and authentically you can express your thoughts and forge genuine connections. Prior to this shift, Tyler believed that fluency meant speaking without any hesitation. But now he understood that fluency meant communicating your ideas in a way that others could effortlessly understand, irrespective of the precise speed. One of the most instrumental practices that aided Tyler was consistently engaging in real-life conversations. He proactively started interacting more frequently with his colleagues and friends in English, making a conscious effort to speak at a measured pace. Initially, this felt strange, but he became profoundly more comfortable. He also began recording himself speaking and diligently listening back. This self-assessment provided him a unique opportunity to hear how he sounded and pinpoint areas for refinement. Tyler also learned that intentionally slowing down did not equate to sacrificing spontaneity. By focusing on delivering his message with unwavering clarity, the natural flow of conversation would effortlessly follow. Tyler discovered that by embracing this new approach, he not only retained his ability to be spontaneous, but actually gained a profound sense of ease and confidence. As time progressed, Tyler observed that this refined approach had a profoundly positive ripple effect. He became noticeably more comfortable speaking English in diverse social situations, and he even started volunteering to lead presentations. People across his organization began to notice the transformative difference. They appreciated his clarity and found his ideas easier to follow. Tyler no longer felt the incessant need to rush or talk excessively to prove his fluency. Instead, he confidently embraced the power of attentive listening and thoughtful, intentional speaking, understanding that this was the definitive key to effective communication. His colleagues began to actively seek his counsel, trusting his thoughtful judgment and clear articulation. His reputation as a considerate, insightful, and approachable individual flourished. The overarching lesson that Tyler profoundly absorbed was this: communication is a dynamic, two-way street. It is not merely about expressing your own thoughts, but equally, it is about consciously cultivating an environment where others feel genuinely comfortable to do the same. By embracing a slower, more deliberate pace, by listening with heightened attention, and by speaking with clear intention, Tyler not only dramatically improved his English fluency, but also profoundly enhanced his capacity to forge deeper, more meaningful connections. His conversations became markedly more natural and engaging, and his professional relationships solidified. As we continue our exploration into the art of improving communication, it's incredibly valuable to pause and reflect on your own habits and practices. This can serve as a profound opportunity to gain perspective and ask yourself some pivotal questions. We frequently find ourselves ensnared in the trap of striving for unattainable perfection. However, as we've discussed, genuine communication is less about flawless linguistic execution and far more about forging authentic human connection. So let's thoughtfully explore some introspective questions that you can use to honestly evaluate your progress and pinpoint areas where you can effectively improve. First, I want you to honestly ask yourself, do you predominantly speak in a way that prioritizes clarity, or are you inadvertently spending too much mental energy trying to achieve an elusive perfection? Many individuals, especially when learning English, fall into the trap of believing they must speak without a single flaw. They hyper-focus on perfect grammar and avoiding any perceived mistakes. However, this obsessive pursuit often leads to frustration and creates unnecessary pressure. What almost invariably happens when we relentlessly strive for perfection is that we inadvertently disrupt the natural flow of conversation. We might find ourselves hesitating, overthinking every word, or even completely avoiding speaking altogether due to the fear of making an error. The truth is that no human speaks perfectly all the time, and it's okay if you make mistakes. Making mistakes is an intrinsic part of learning. The single most important objective is to be unequivocally clear. Clarity is the bedrock that enables others to understand your message and genuinely connect with them. If you can effectively express your core ideas in simple, direct, and clear sentences, people will understand you, even with minor imperfections. So, rather than fixating on perfection, consciously redirect your focus towards communicating your message with the utmost clarity possible. Next, I want you to deeply consider this question. Do you actively practice English in your daily life, even if it's for as little as 5 minutes? Consistency is the undisputed champion in language learning. It's not about grueling hours, but about seamlessly incorporating small, digestible practice sessions into your routine. Even a mere 5 minutes can accumulate into a significant difference. Perhaps you can dedicate those minutes to repeating a sentence you learned, practicing pronunciation, or actively listening to a brief podcast segment. You don't need to dedicate an entire hour. Instead, consider how you can organically integrate these short, impactful moments. Reflect on your daily activities. What specific, small actions could you take within those brief 5-minute gaps? Perhaps you could describe objects around you, internally narrate your actions, or articulate your thoughts. You could also practice simple greetings or brief small talk. These seemingly insignificant moments of consistent practice will compound over time, making you progressively more comfortable speaking and thinking spontaneously in English. So, I urge you to ask yourself, do you make the conscious effort to carve out even a brief moment for English practice every single day? Finally, let's turn our attention to how you can continue to improve. Reflect deeply on this concluding question. What is one tangible action you can take today to immediately improve your communication skills? There is perpetually room for growth, and you don't need to postpone making positive changes. Think about one small, achievable thing you can implement right now that will propel you closer to more effective communication. It could be as simple as setting aside 5 minutes to practice speaking aloud, or actively listening to a brief English conversation, or consciously attempting to use a new phrase in your next conversation. The key here is not the magnitude of the task, it is the fundamental act of taking action. Perhaps you can challenge yourself to more frequently engage with English in your daily thought processes. If you typically think in your native language, try consciously switching your internal monologue to English. Or, if you experience nervousness about speaking, courageously challenge yourself to initiate a very small conversation with a colleague or friend. By actively taking action, regardless of how modest it may seem, you will undeniably make progress. These reflective questions are designed to help you gain clarity and identify precise, actionable steps. It is important to practice self-compassion. Language learning is not a race, and every individual progresses at their own pace. What truly matters is your unwavering commitment to consistently moving forward. If you can steadfastly focus on clear communication, diligently find small opportunities for daily practice, and courageously take action today, you will gradually notice profound improvements. Remember always that enhancing your communication skills is an ongoing journey. You don't have to be perfect, but you absolutely do have to be consistent and committed. Keep practicing, keep reflecting, and most importantly, keep nurturing genuine connections. Communication transcends mere speaking. It is about forging truly meaningful human connections. By diligently focusing on these seemingly small but profoundly impactful actions, you are undeniably on your way to becoming a more confident, more effective, and more connected communicator in English. Thank you so much for investing your valuable time and joining me today on this episode of the Best English Podcast. It is always an immense pleasure to share this dedicated time with you, and I sincerely hope you found the insights, tips, and inspiring stories genuinely helpful in your ongoing journey toward mastering effective communication in English. As we gently draw this episode to a close, I want to leave you with a strong call to action. True progress doesn't just happen when you listen, it happens when you apply what you've learned. So, my personal challenge for you today is to thoughtfully select at least one practical tip from this episode and consciously put it into practice in your real life. Perhaps you'll commit to trying to speak a little slower, allowing yourself more mental space to think. Or maybe you'll focus intently on using simpler, clearer sentences the very next time you speak in English. Whatever actionable step you choose, take that crucial first stride today. And always, always remember this liberating truth. Your English doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be understood. That, my friends, is the absolute key to unlocking your potential. It's not about speaking flawlessly or attempting to impress others with an academic vocabulary. It is, at its core, about authentically connecting with people and ensuring your message is clearly understood. And when you squarely focus on that profound objective, you will discover that your confidence will naturally blossom, and your communication abilities will transform effortlessly. If you genuinely found value and inspiration in today's episode, I would be absolutely thrilled for you to like this video, leave a comment below sharing one tip you'll try, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our future episodes. You can also share this episode with a friend, a family member, or a colleague who is also striving to enhance their English. Thank you once again for being here with me, dedicating your time and energy to your growth. I am genuinely so proud of the consistent effort you are investing in your English skills. Keep diligently practicing, keep thoughtfully applying what you learn, and most importantly, remember to truly savor and enjoy every step of this incredible journey. I'll be right here, ready with more insights, tips, and inspiring stories to wholeheartedly support you along the way. Until next time, take excellent care of yourselves and keep communicating.